Good afternoon. What I'm going to be explaining to you is called the greatest common factor and factor by grouping. There's some words that I'm going to highlight, and I kind of recommend that you highlight two. First of all, highlight the word factors, factored form, polynomials. We've been talking about polynomials. Once again, and that's it right now. And I'm going to read this here. It says, in the product 2 times 3 equals 6, we know that 2 and 3 are called factors of 6. And 2 times 3 is a factored form of 6. We can also say this is going to be true for polynomials. The example that is given in this paragraph is x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to x plus 2 times x plus 3. We're saying that x plus 2 and x plus 3 are what we call factors of x squared plus 5x plus 6. So as you can see in the screen below here, it says a factored form of 6 will be 2 times 3. The factored form of x to the 5th is x to the 2nd times x to the 3rd. Also, the factored form for x squared plus 5x plus 6 is going to be x plus 5 times x plus 2. X plus 2 times x plus 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the greatest common factor. We have 28 and we have 40. So for us to find the greatest common factor, that means we want to know the number or the terms or the factors that go into both of them. And so we have 28. We're going to do our prime factorization. We have 4 times 7. And we know that 4 is the same thing as saying 2 times 2. 40, we have 5 times 8. 8 is the same thing as saying as 2 times 4. And 4 is the same thing as 2 times 2. So you notice we have 28, and the factors of 28 will be 2 times 2 times 7. And the factors of 40 will be 5 times 2 times 2 times 2. And what we want to find is, what do they have in common? We know that they have this 2 in common. They also have this 2 in common. And that's it. So the greatest common factor between 28 and 40 will be, and we say GCF as short, 2 times 2, which is equal to 4. That will be the greatest common factor between 28 and 40. So what you have to do is what we call prime factorization. We have to do prime factorization. So now what I want you to do is I want you to find the greatest common factor between 55 and 21. So we're going to have 55, and you're going to do your prime factorization. You have 5 times 11, and we know that 5 and 11 are prime. 21, the factors of 21 are 3 times 7, and we know that 3 is prime, and we know that 7 is prime. So 55 is equal to 5 times, or I'm going to put a dot here, times 11, and I know that 21 is equal to 3 times 7. You're probably thinking to yourself, they don't have a number in common, but they do have one number, and that is 1. So the greatest common factor between 55 and 21 is 1. Go ahead and try to find the common factor between 15 and 18. And just like I said before, you're going to go ahead and do the prime factorization tree. So if you have 15, the factors of 15 are 3 times 5, And you notice that 3 is prime, and we have 5 is prime. 18 is the same as 3 times 6. We know that 3 is prime, but 6 is not prime, so it's going to be 2 times 3. And then what you want to do is you want to list the factors. So 15 is going to be 3 times 5, and we know that 18 is going to be 3 times 3 times 2. So the only thing that they have in common is the 3. So the greatest common factor will be 3. The next example, we're going to have to find the greatest common factor amongst variables. And we know that x to the third is the same thing as saying x times x times x. And we know that x to the fifth is the same as saying x times x times x times x times x. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we know that x to the seventh is the same thing as saying x times x times x times x times x. And you know that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 more. And now we got to find what they have in common. And in this case, they have one set of x in common. They have another set of x in common. And then they have the third set of x in common. So the greatest common factor, and I'm going to write GCF, will be x times x times x, which will be x to the third power. For example B, we're also going to find the greatest common factor. So we have y to the fourth, so it's going to be y times y times y times y. Y to the seventh is actually going to be 7 y's, right? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is y to the fourth, and this is called factored form. And this is y to the seventh, and this is called factored form. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now we got to figure out how many do they have in common. So they have, oh, I'm sorry. That's not going to work. Okay. We're going to go ahead. We have this y in common. We have this y in common. We have this y in common. And we have this y in common. So, what will be the greatest common factor? The greatest common factor will be y to the fourth power. That will be the greatest common factor. We're going to have y to the fourth power. That will be the greatest common